Thanks very much, Dugald School. Appreciated. I'm going to ask Trustee Wilson to read out our treaty acknowledgement.
We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnership with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thanks, Trustee Wilson. Introductions around the room before we get underway. To my left is Superintendent Reid. Beside him is Assistant Superintendent and Acting Secretary Treasurer Lars Fjellberg. We have Trustee Smith. We have our two presenters that are here from École Dugald School. We have Mike Carter and Beausier Elementary School. École Beausier Elementary School. We have Mike Carter and Caleb Breitspecker. We have Trustee Nicol, we have Trustee Wilson, we have Trustee Boytson, we have Sarah Scott, who is our board support, and we have Trustee Harris. As well in the gallery is Amanda Duke from Gillis, PAC. Welcome, Amanda, with us. To the other million people that are watching online, so welcome to the people that are there. Oh, thank you very much. And we have Diane Rowan is with us, but is remotely. Two of our trustees, Trustee Dent and Trustee Rowan, are at a school event tonight, so they're not able to make it. If I haven't missed anybody, we're going to move forward. We have the adoption of the agenda, so I need be it resolved the board approve the agenda. I need to move in a seconder. Moved by Trustee Wilson and seconded by Trustee Nicol. Any questions to the motion? Hearing none, will vote. For anybody that's online, we vote all electronically, and it'll come up on the screen, is that there are two trustees that are not here, and then 7 all are in favor of it. Thank you for that. Chair's comments. So if anybody online, if you have any questions, I'm going to get you to send questions to Lars Fjellberg, so L. Fjellberg at sunrisesd.ca. Put your name and address in the sender, and we'll try to get your questions during question period. Again, to L. Fjellberg at sunrisesd.ca. We're going to open up to share a story. Trustees, share a story about how things are going. Schools, floor is open. Trustee Boytson.
To celebrate I Love to Read Month, I was invited to read at 4 schools. So this past week, I read at Heartland, Richland, and Springfield Colony Schools. The last week of February, I'll be reading at Enola School. So just thanks to our schools for the opportunity to read to your students. The students are always so attentive and inquisitive. Lots of questions, but it was lots of fun. On February 10th was Eastman Municipal Forum, hosted by the RMF Springfield, and it was held in Dugald. The forum included a presentation by municipal services officers on conflict of interest and codes of conduct, as well as various updates and reports, including one from our superintendent. Thanks, Trevor, for presenting your Sunrise School Division report. And lastly, next Hazel Ridge School PAC is February 26th at 6:30.
Thanks, Trustee Boytson. Anyone else? Trustee Nicol.
The Whitemouth mixed doubles curling team completed the provincials this past weekend in Borden. Our junior and the Whitemouth junior and senior cheer team are headed to their first competition since COVID, and this is taking place this weekend, and it's at Boyne Down. So if you want to go and cheer on the cheer team, that's where they are competing in the provincials. I'm not quite sure the provincials, but that's the big competition anyway. On Friday, Whitemouth is having their festival celebration. It's going to be all day. At 9 o'clock in the morning, there is a big pancake breakfast. So if you want to come and have a pancake breakfast at Whitemouth School, you're invited to come, and they've got the whole day planned out. Plus, they are busy because February is hard to read month. They're busy doing all the reading. I think every second day somebody's coming in and reading. I think this Thursday I'm going there and I will be doing a magic show. So if you're interested in seeing the magic show I'm doing on Thursday, you can come there. We're doing in the afternoon. So that's something that you might want to see.
Thanks very much, Trustee Nichol. I wrote it down, Thursday Magic Show by Trustee Nichol at Whitemouth School. Awesome, it's perfect. Anyone else want to share? So I'll share a few things. If people aren't aware, is that we've now entered into negotiations with 2 of our CUPE unions, and so that's a process that we're just getting underway as a board. There are a number of activities that are going on from our senior administrators to trustees reading in schools at I Love to Read Month. I'm sure we're going to hear lots from Ecole Beaujeu Early Years School today, certainly about the activities that are going on in their school with regard to I Love to Read Month. It's great to see. It's good to see as many of our trustees being able to get out and getting into the schools to be able to go ahead and do that. And the activities from Festival de Voyageurs to some of the field trips that schools are going on. You know, it's February and we're busy, and it's never easy when we go to bed. Well, it's easy when I go to bed. It might not be easy when Mr. Reed goes to bed at 30 below temperatures and trying to figure out what to do in the morning, those kind of things, and with snow. But kudos to senior admin for the work that you continue to go ahead and do in always making sure that our kids get to school safely. So thank you for that, and thanks to all the bus drivers, etc., our whole crew. Anyone else want to add? Go ahead, Trustee Smith.
Just wanted to mention that Gillis's PAC is on February 20th at 6 p.m. That's all I have right now, though.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move to 4.1. We have a board delegation, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Reed, to introduce our school.
Sure, as you already pointed out, just like to welcome our admin team from Ecole Beaujeu Early Years School, Mr. Carter and Mrs. Breitsprecher. They're here to share some literacy data with us, I believe, this evening. So turn it over to the crew.
Thank you, everyone. Kayla and I are here today to talk about literacy at our school. Before we dive into this, we had a bit of a conversation before coming and setting up for today is what were we going to share. So our school has been working on literacy as our school goal for a number of years now. Last time we sat here, we talked about literacy. Our school goal has actually shifted this year to go into the realm of social emotional behavioral learning. But I wanted to come back to you and answer some questions that were raised last time around, because last time around we didn't have the data to share with you. And today I want to share the data with you and kind of give you an idea of where we're at with our journey with literacy and where we're continuing to go with literacy as a school. This is where we left off our last meeting. How do you know it's working? That was the question. That's always the question from Paul. So that is what we want to talk about today is how do we know it's working in the school? What data do we have? So, there we go, that's better. So that's what we want to discuss today, and we're going to start by sharing some of the data from last school year. So Trevor, if you could switch to the next one. We have set certain criteria that our teachers are collecting data on students throughout the school year, first reporting term, second reporting term, third reporting term, and we are using that to inform decision making at all sorts of levels within the building. What we have here to share with you today is some pie charts that show progress in some of these areas that we've been assessing students and tracking data from beginning of year to end of year. First one you see in front of you today is our school-wide Fontes and Pinnell assessments. We've actually moved away from using Fontes and Pinnell as a school-wide approach this year, and we've gone more into a phonics-based approach for assessment tools. Last year, this is what we knew and what we had already had in place. But what you'll see between first term and second term is growth throughout. So if we look at first term, we have 81% below where we'd expect them at the end of the year. By year end, we're looking at 71% are at or above grade level. So we can see that using the F&P, we see significant gains throughout the school year in all areas. If we look at the divisional progressions, we have the school-wide data for reading progressions. This actually tells a pretty good story as well in terms of progress. So in term one, we're looking at 42% of students were below where they're supposed to be at the end of the year, which is to be expected since this is from the first term. And then 52% are at, and only 3% are above. If we look at end of year reporting data, we're now looking at only 14% below, 64% at where they expected to be at for grade level, and 20% are above where they're expected to be at for grade level end. So our data is showing as a school significant progress throughout the year. Same thing for writing. So if we look at our writing progressions, the data is not quite as strong as the reading progressions, but we still see significant improvements. We're looking at in first term 49% below, 46% at, and 2% above. Year end, we're now at 30% below, 60% at, and 9% above. So once again, strong progress throughout the year. And this is one area I wanted to focus on in terms of data. That's our grade 1 English class. So our grade 1 English program saw a real shift towards a more phonics, phonemic awareness-based approach last year, with our teachers adapting or adopting different approaches, including UFly, some Haggerty depending on the classroom, that as well. So much more phonics phonemic-based approach. And what we saw are some really significant improvements throughout the year. So if we look at first term, this is looking at the reading progressions just for the English program grade 1. We had 71% below year-end expectations, so that's acceptable at that point in time, 20% at, and 0% above. If you change the slide there, Trevor, if we switch now to the end of the year, we only have 7% below, 69% at, and 22% above grade level, if we're looking at the divisional reading progression. So we see a significant shift in our grade 1s using the approaches we had in place. And some of that data has really transferred over into other areas of the school now as we adopt the more phonics and phonemic awareness-based approaches throughout the school. So in terms of data, how do we know it's working? Clearly the trend is in all areas of reading and writing, growth throughout the school, and in certain areas of pockets we see huge growth throughout in the school. So that's come back to answer the question, how do we know it's working? The data is showing it.
I'm going to go over the programs and the vision that we have at École Beauséjour Earlier School. So our program focuses on developing literacy skills for students in grades K to 5 by using a variety of literacy tools and school-wide assessment practices. Our decision for tools and programs are based on research-based evidence and phonics-based approaches to literacy instruction and meeting divisional expectations. We believe that by integrating these resources, we can create a strong foundation for reading and writing in our young learners. To support our students' literacy growth, we utilize several key tools and resources. The Words Their Way developmental spelling assessment tool helps us understand students' phonics, vocabulary, and spelling abilities, and helps our teachers guide their learning and track their growth. The UFly program provides a structured approach to literacy instruction. By offering our students these structured and systematic approaches, teachers can identify the areas in literacy students may be falling behind in and provide targeted strategies and lessons to help support those students. We also use DIBELS. It's a dynamic indicator of basic early literacy skills as a screener to measure the early literacy skills of our students, tracking their progress over time, and to inform our interventionists of which students require extra support. Additionally, we refer to the divisional reading and writing progressions to ensure that our teaching aligns with developmental expectations at each grade level. We are also continuously incorporating a variety of phonics-based approaches such as OG and Haggerty to enhance phonemic awareness and decoding skills. It is important to highlight that these programs are not courses or subjects. Instead, they serve as resources that support students in developing their phonics and phonemic awareness skills in literacy. We do not identify as a UFly school or a Words Their Way school. However, the tools we are currently using in our building have shown positive results. The data indicates that participating in these programs has helped students improve their understanding of the phonics and phonemic process involved in reading and writing. To effectively monitor students' progress, we conduct data collection at the end of each reporting period. This is in addition to the daily assessment done in classrooms. This school-wide literacy tracking allows us to gather insight on how our students are performing. We analyze this data at the grade level to identify trends and areas for improvement. By utilizing this information, we can adopt a responsive approach that supports each student's literacy development effectively. Assessments linked to DIBELS, Words Their Way, and UFI have provided valuable information. This data has guided our interventionists in planning the next steps for students in grades K to 2 and 3 to 5, and students that need further targeted explicit instruction. And how are we going to support this in our schools? So our professional support structure is designed to enhance literacy instruction within our school. We have a dedicated school-based literacy team leader, Renee Senkew, who works alongside our admin team to navigate and implement our school-wide literacy initiatives. In addition, we have a K to 2 literacy interventionist, Danae Dawson, and a 3 to 5 literacy support teacher, Micheline Laferraniere, who works closely with our student support services team to identify the students requiring extra support. Divisional program leaders provide further guidance and support. Regular professional learning community meetings foster collaboration among educators while continuing to make targeted professional development sessions a priority throughout the year.
And just to lastly, 2 more points. Resource allocation. The last number of years, literacy has been a priority. And although we moved away from literacy as our school goal, it still remains a priority. One of the priorities then is budgeting effectively to meet the needs of our students and continue to offer these supports. So in terms of funding, we have utilized in the past a large amount of our SPDM dollars to support literacy programming. That could be everything from materials to collaboration between teachers, etc. going on, and that continues to be a priority for us. So resources are allocated and continue to be allocated for literacy. And then the last slide here, and this is a spot we spend a lot of time on. As we move away from literacy as our school goal, how do we sustain what we've built already moving forward and ensure that it is responsive to the students' needs moving forward? It's not something that can be put by the wayside as we move in a different direction. It's something that needs to be sustained. Literacy is a big part of what we do in a school. It's incredibly important. So we have a few points on there in terms of what some of the things we've done. Really what we're talking about is continuing to build teacher capacity, both with our experienced teachers and ensuring we have a method for onboarding new teachers to make sure that they're getting the skills and access to materials and resources they need as they come onto staff. We're looking at continuing to make data-driven decisions around literacy to inform practice, to inform intervention, and making sure that that data is informing our decisions so that we're responsive to the needs of the students as they change. And lastly, we have to continue and will continue to look at what do our teachers need and what do our students need in terms of materials and supports as we move forward. So that is really our next step in the area of literacy and programming for the school is how do we sustain what we have created and make sure that it is responsive to the needs of our students as we move forward. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike and Kayla. I was just writing down some stuff that I'm going to ask in a minute. Does anybody have any questions for the admin team? Trustee Harris.
So Beausejour is a growing community. Your school is bursting from the seams, and a year ago, I think it was only been a year, you had a new hut. Did that alleviate the problem?
So we added the modular classroom on last year in October, whenever it was available. It alleviated some of the stress for sure. I would say though that there is a need for more. One of the things is, yes, we were able to move a classroom out, with the needs of the school, in particular needs, the exceptional needs of some of our children, we've also had to increase spaces for student services. So that, yes, we moved one classroom out, but we've also taken over a classroom space for a sensory room to meet the needs of a number of our students in the school. So what we have before was our life skills room. It simply isn't large enough, given the needs that we're currently needing to accommodate and work with in our school. So yes, it helped, but as soon as we solved one problem, we have created the same problem of space by trying to solve another problem.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else? So Mike and Kayla, what you've shown us is impressive. The work that you've done certainly in the school and the data that you're showing with regard to where your kids are, very impressive for your team. Kudos. My question is, you're talking about moving away from this direction, and I heard you use, we need to worry about trying to sustain this as you take on another initiative. Tell me how that's going to go.
I think there's a few pieces to that. We need to build teacher capacity. We also need to build teacher leaders within the building who can support each other with that. We've been fortunate that we have some very strong leaders in the building who are also exceptional teachers, especially in the area of literacy. Renee Semke, Danae Dawson, Michelin Lafreniere, we all discussed today, and there's more within the building. So giving those teachers the opportunity to support other teachers in the building has been part of our model so far, and is something we plan on sustaining moving forward. We also want to make sure that we bring teachers on board in some of the decision making. So one of the things we've added this year is, instead of just a few people involved in some of this and looking at the data and driving the movement forward in the area of literacy, is creating a leadership team and opening the door for more teachers to be involved in that. Interesting enough, when we opened that up, we thought we'd have a few teachers involved. Last meeting I attended, I want to say there was 8 or 9 teachers involved, in addition to admin, in addition to our team leader in the school. So we've created a few leadership opportunities, and that has helped make a more sustainable model, so it's not falling on the shoulders of 1 or 2, it's falling on the shoulders of more. It also means that there's more buy-in to what we are doing in the school because more teachers are involved in taking that opportunity. We continue to look at what are the resources needed in the classroom, what are the resources students and teachers need, and making sure that we are budgeting for that accordingly. Continuing to work with our divisional supports, our program leaders. They've been a great resource to us and continue to be a great resource to us. They've helped a lot, especially as we look at new initiatives and look at bringing on board new staff. And how do we get those staff up to speed on things? So I hope that answers your question.
Not quite. So my question is, I think that you're doing a great job, and your data is showing it, and you have a written initiative, and you've got assessment tools, and the results are getting. But you're now telling me that you're adding something to the plate, and you're adding a new initiative. What's your new initiative that you're adding? Because I think that's what you talked about.
At the very beginning? No, we're moving away from like Fontes and Pinal, which is, I don't think it's we're adding new, we're changing, right? So Fontes and Pinal has been around for years and years and years and years, right? And with the division going away from reading recovery, Fontes and Pinal is a reading recovery approach, right? So we know better, we're trying to do a little bit better with doing phonics-based, research-based assessments or screeners that are going to give us what we're looking for and what we need to address. So it's not that we're getting rid of, we're just replacing it with something that is probably more meaningful to us and we can make better decisions.
Okay, so I misunderstood. So the literacy and numeracy, the literacy and writing initiative is still going to continue. I thought you were bringing on a new goal.
No. So we do have a new school goal this year around social emotional learning. However, literacy is always going to be a goal within the school, right? We were going to have a literacy plan that we're moving forward with. We wanted to present you with the results, right? We wanted to give you you know, the question we've been asked and we've talked about is how do we know what's working? Well, we have the data now to show you what we've been able to do as literacy was our goal, and what we've been doing and how we've supported the staff and how we've worked together to kind of get to the results that we've gotten to.
So we obviously want to see these results year after year, right? And now you're bringing on another initiative with regard to social emotional well-being within your school. So we're asking teachers more, I guess, as to what it is. That's my question.
Yeah, so we are moving away from literacy as a school goal, and we are focusing more on the social, emotional, behavioral learning realm. Our data also shows that is an area of great need within the school. I wouldn't say it's more that we're adding. We want to look at it right now. I guess talking about the transition maybe would be the first step. So this year, our uptake of the social, emotional, behavioral, a lot of what we've done right now is assessing where we're at with things. So we were very slow in introducing things and not adding too much to the table right away as we continue to focus on literacy. Moving forward, I don't want to say that we're adding more. I want to look at it as more we're looking at what are we doing and is it effective in what we're doing. So it's not necessarily adding more, but rather doing things differently where needed. And so right now we are looking at a very systematic approach to addressing social, emotional, behavioral learning needs, a lot in the area of positive behavior intervention. And a lot of that is looking at efficiencies in our system in determining what are the needs of our students, how are we addressing those needs, and are we being effective in addressing those needs. And we're looking at a very systemic approach for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 students in that model. So I wouldn't say it's adding more to what we're doing, but rather is what we're doing effective, and if it isn't, what can we do differently to make sure we're meeting the needs of all students depending on what their needs are in the school. Does that help answer it, Paul?
Absolutely. Because now I'm going to ask you next year when you come back, is that I'm going to ask you for continuation with this to see where you are, because it's great information and you're doing a great job. And now you've got a socially emotional plan that you're going to put together. And I'm going to ask you, the question is, what you put together and what you did with your staff, did it work? And what were you trying to gain out of it, you know, to go from A to B or whatever? Not as easy to measure, but you've noticed that there's an issue in your school, so then what are you doing about it? It looks like you've got a plan, but my question will always be, is what you're doing working? Because you've demonstrated clearly that it is working very well, certainly from what you've got, and that's 1 year. You know, and we want to have, you know, this is something that's, you know, 10 years down the road, we want to, you want to be taking a look at this and saying, hey, is this what's working? Because my next question will be, as you bring on another initiative, what do you need?
We debated for a while what to present tonight. I mean, we had many conversations because we wanted to, but I think we're so excited where we are in the realms of literacy, and we worked so hard as a team and as a school to kind of get to where we are. I think it would have been a disservice to our staff not to share those results with you guys. Right? So I think yes, we want to present on the social emotional realm of what we're doing, but we've worked so hard, and I think it's just so important to share that with everybody about all the great things that our school's been doing.
Because one of your slides talks about, and Mike, I think that you put it down here with regard to resource allocation. So I think it's one of your last slides. It's about funding resources, classroom materials, professional development. Well, now you're taking on, you want to keep that, and now you're taking on something else, and pretty well your SBDM dollars, and you've got your literacy people and what it is, and now you're taking on something else. And so where are you getting, and how are you resourcing that, I guess is the question. Is that I'd love to answer you, that I would love you to answer next time when you come back. All right? Obviously that's, you know what, it's really about how you're doing it. Good for you, and good luck. Anyone else? Questions? Yeah, Alicia?
My question is, when it comes to, because not everybody in the world knows that all of our schools get a chunk of money to basically make a decision on what they want to spend on their, who in your school do you have in your group that decides on what to spend that money on, and how do you go about making that decision?
When it comes to SBDM dollars, in the end, I'm approving all financial pieces, but I don't have, I'm always looking for the input of the team. So depending on what it is, so if we're spending money on literacy, I'm going to Kayla, I'm going to Renee, I'm going to those people that know what we need. And I'm asking the question, what data supports that as being a good decision? Why are we making that decision? And I'm looking for their input when it comes to school-based decision-making money, and really for spending of a lot of the funds. It's very much a conversation around what is it that we need and why do we think we need it? What is the expected result from this? So that's often the conversation. And so if it's literacy stuff, I'm going to those people in the school who have a good understanding of where our literacy program is currently at. If it's around social, emotional, behavioral learning, I'm going to have a conversation with those who are working with me on that area. So that's an area I'm piloting or taking a significant lead on, along with Christy Husel in the school. And so Christy and I are talking a lot about what is it that we're implementing and what are the supports needed. If it's for our student services team in terms of creating a space for our students who have sensory needs, etc., I'm going to them, I'm going to our clinicians and asking what are those needs, what backing do we have to support that this is going to be successful for this child or for these children. So a lot of it is going to the people who are very involved and hands-on with the kids, who know the kids' needs, finding out what those needs are, listening to their recommendations, and asking the question of why they think that's going to work. And that's how we're coming up with our decisions on where the money's being spent in the end.
Thanks, Mike. Last question that you get a chance. Tomorrow night is one of the big nights that 9 of us are sitting around a table talking about dollars and cents for next year. What do you want to give us as you go away? And you've got 2 minutes, not 25 minutes.
Well, it's 2 minutes. For Beausejour Early Years, some of this is a provincial piece too, but a lot of it is space. Finding the space in the school to meet the needs of the kids and for programming needs. What that looks at like though, whether it's a modular classroom, etc., I mean some of that is beyond, and that's at a provincial level, but those are some of the big ticket items we're looking at. In terms of what are the needs of the school, our student services team is very important to the running of our school. Last year we had an increase in resource teachers from you, and we're very appreciative of that. But continued support around student services, for resources, for staffing, because it does play a big role in our school, as we have seen an increasing number of needs within our building over the last 6 years. And then just funding to continue to support some of the work we have been doing. Literacy resources are not cheap. Literacy resources in French language are even more expensive, if not double the cost. And so we didn't talk about much today, but continuing on with some of our work in literacy in French language continues to be something we're working on and have been working on. Just off the top of my head, those are probably the 3 big areas I look at right now in terms of our needs as a school.
Well, thanks, Mike.
I kind of have a question.
Go ahead.
Not related to money.
Okay, go ahead.
So 5 years ago, next month, COVID hit. Your students were in kindergarten. Now they're graduating this year. Any comments to that? I don't know how to question that, how to ask a question there. Have you found the students adapted from that couple of years away from school, having to home learn? How do they compare to the students that have been started just after that? Are you seeing a lot more hugging going on by teachers and students because they're forgetting all about COVID and that's allowed now and blah, 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 blah? Little kids, teachers love to be with the kids. That's what I mean. That's why I was careful how I worded that.
So, yeah, it's been a while. The impact of COVID, it's very hard to measure. And every kid's going to be different on how it impacted them during that time. I think from an academic standpoint, I think that in most cases our kids have been able to rebound back from that COVID time. I say most, not all. I don't have any data to necessarily support that off the top of my head. The social emotional impact of COVID, that one's a hard one to measure. It might be something that we are continuing to look at measuring as a society for years to come. In some cases, could have had an impact for sure, but it's very hard to pinpoint what impact it had. But I do know that no matter what the scenario, we continue to look at individual student needs. So if there's a need in the social emotional realm, if there's a need in the academic realm, our teachers are looking at those needs. As a school, we're looking at those needs and trying to determine how to best meet those needs of the individual students. Whether it was due to COVID, whether it was due to ABCD, we don't know, but we can work to address those needs. And I think that's really our focus at this point in time.
I'm super interested to see the kinders this year because they're all the COVID babies. They went through like the 2 years of kind of isolation, those first 2 years of their lives. So I'm interested to kind of see the impact that could have had on their development coming into kindergarten. So that'll be interesting to see.
I just want to wrap up by making some comments from the divisional perspectives that I just want to highlight for the trustees here is over the course of the last year, you've heard me speak about literacy, a couple of times, and I was involved from the divisional principal ends. Before that, most notably, we've got our division principals leading a divisional literacy committee that's kind of setting direction on literacy for the school division. From there, we do all kinds of professional development out of this room here centrally. But that's pocketed. It's our kindergarten teachers, it's our grade 1 teachers, it's our literacy support teachers, our resource teachers, student services teachers, team leaders from schools, our program leaders have a big part in delivering all of that. But then we send people back out to a school, and that can go one of two ways. People can go back to school with that knowledge and they can use it in isolation in their individual roles, or we can see them all go back to schools where strong leadership is present, and then our leaders then actually take that and re-galvanize it back at the school level. And I would say that this was probably one of the strongest examples of that that's going on in the school division. This is how it's supposed to work. We have a divisional initiative, we have clear plans, we put the supports in place, people go back to their schools, but at that point in time, from a divisional perspective, we're limited. The results that you saw the school share with us this evening are very impressive, but they're a result of the galvanization of all the efforts of the school division by the school administrators back at the school level. And so without strong leadership at the school level, this just doesn't happen. We're spinning our wheels at the division level with all this professional development if strong leaders at the school level don't pull it all back together for us at that level. And that's very clearly what's happening here. We've got 2 administrators who are committed to literacy and making sure that good things are happening around literacy in their school.
Thanks, Jeff, for that. So certainly on behalf of all of us here, thanks for coming out and presenting to us and answering the question that you knew that you're going to get asked, and you did it, and nice work. And we're going to continue to ask those questions, but nice work all the way around. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. All right. We're in good hands at Beaulieu Earlier School. Thanks, guys. We're going to move on to 5.0, our minutes from our February 4th meeting. Be it resolved that the board adopt the February 4th regular board meeting minutes. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Smith and seconded by Trustee Wilson. Any questions to those minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote. And it passed 6-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you. 6.0 is our superintendent's report. Mr. Reid, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, just a few things to highlight for you this evening. We've heard it a couple times already that February is I Love to Read month, and just had the pleasure of being in 6 schools so far this month to read to students, having a great time doing that. And more schools scheduled for the last couple of weeks here of the month. Looking forward to those opportunities as well. Just something of note for all of our stakeholders. We've already heard about the weather once this evening from our board chair, but at a recent policy committee meeting, we agreed to change one of the division's weather reporting stations in procedure EBCE, our inclement weather related to school closures. We had previously identified Winnipeg the Forks due to its geographic proximity to the school division, but we were finding that was giving unusually warm temperatures that probably weren't reflective of what our families and our children who are waiting for buses in the rural area are facing. So we've made the switch to the weather station in Winnipeg at the airport. And so that switch has been made, and we put that to test this morning as the temperature dropped to minus 43 at the airport, and we were all watching very closely how low it would go. And so just of note that we did receive the funding announcement from the province related to our annual school budget, but it actually came quite late. February 12th is when we got that, almost a full 2 weeks later than we would usually get it. But the Board of Trustees did sort of rejig their board meeting schedule and their budget meeting schedule, and still on pace to share a draft budget for the public on Tuesday, February the 25th, and that will be at 7 o'clock here at the Education Center. Also in the report, just highlighted some of the meetings that have occurred in professional development opportunities that have occurred here at the Education Center over the past couple weeks. And last Friday, we had our two division principals, Mr. Gasperdi and Mr. Wilgosh, were out at Brandon University for some recruitment. It seems like a little bit farther to go for recruiting, but they did come back and say that they did connect with roughly half a dozen people who are actually specifically interested in coming to this side of the province for the recreation that it offers. And so that was rewarding, so they've connected with those and brought those names back. So we'll be watching for those as we begin our postings. And just oddly, anecdotally, they came back and they wish they had followed up, but one of the faculty members had approached them sort of at the end of the day and said they just needed to come by the Sunrise booth because all of the students walking out were talking about Sunrise School Division. And they didn't ask for clarification over to why that may have been, and they sort of regretted after the fact not seeking that clarification, but just thought it was interesting that there was enough of a buzz around Sunrise that one of the professors at the faculty had picked it up and came by the booth to see who was at the Sunrise booth. So great job for our two division principals there. And then just of note, still working through the Power Schools cybersecurity data breach. Again, unfortunately, Power Schools seems to be a little bit slow in communicating with families as they said that they would. We did circulate a fourth update on February the 6th, and that is on the website. And just our ongoing commitment to families and staff that as Power Schools makes more information available to us, we will continue to share that with all of our stakeholders very promptly.
Thanks, Mr. Reid. Any questions, Trustee Nicol?
This is not a question, but it'd be interesting to find out statistically how many students from Sunrise goes to Brandon University. Because that might be the reason why you're getting so many people coming back to Sunrise because they came from Sunrise.
Thanks. Nice, good observation for sure. Can we move on? Okay. So a board reporting schedule, you have that schedule there in front of you. I know that we have the grade 3 that was supposed to, the grade 3-4 provincial assessment data. It's not available to us, right? And so you'll get to it. Do you want to comment on that?
No, just that very simply. We have not received the data from the province yet, so as soon as we get the data from the province, we'll get it back on the next meeting.
While we're on this, I am going to share with all trustees the provincial, the grade 12 provincial tests average marks. I don't know if you've seen it, Don, but the province has on their website, and they've shared it out, is what our applied essentials pre-cal English, what it is across the province from 2016 to 2019 and now in 2024. how the province did in 19 and how the province did in 2024. But what's really interesting is it shows you by division. So you can go to the division and you can go ahead and take a look. As for our division, how we did in applied maths in 2019 and how we're doing it in 2024. And all of them, which will lead to more questions that are out there, because it does show how the division did compared to then the province did. And you know, the question that came up that you brought up with regard to COVID, these are some of the COVID kids as well, now taking some exams, and in some places we're doing real well, and other places we've got some work to do. So if you don't have that information, I'll make sure that I get it out to you. But it's very, it's a good one, and I was just looking at it right now because I reminded Trustee Harris brought it up about COVID kids, so interesting. Thanks. Any other questions around that? So, Secretary Treasurer's report. Who's the lucky one? It's there for information, and I think that you referred to acting Secretary Treasurer. All those questions can go towards him. So, is there anything from the report there that you wanted to, any comments on? Okay, thanks Jody for putting that together. 8.1 board business, or certainly 8.0 board business. 8.1 is trustee learning sessions. We've identified 2 areas about learning sessions, and so one is we talked about social media tools, and the other one sexual orientation and gender identity in schools. Lars about facilitating one, and then one facilitated by our one of our division principals and one of our school principals. So we need to find some dates. So the issue is about us getting some dates for Sarah, so that Sarah can put these things out and put these things together for us. So, trustees, that's what we've set aside, is right, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Are there any dates to stay away from for Sarah? And Sarah, I would say is that we're going to hold on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now while we're in budget season for budget stuff. But I would say that as soon as budget's over, from